I teach both 20th century world history and English literature, and this is a poem that I can use in either class. And my apparently unique take on this poem is that it's about Christian hope in the most horrendous circumstances. The poem is Leningrad Cemetery 1941 by Sharon Olds. In 1941, during World War II, the German army laid siege to Leningrad, which we now call St. Petersburg. In Operation Barbarossa, Hitler's armies aimed to capture major cities. And Leningrad was a prime target because of its industrial importance and its symbolic value. By September, German forces had completely surrounded the city and cut off all the supply routes. What followed was one of the longest and deadliest sieges in history. It lasted nearly 900 days. Even in that first winter, extreme starvation killed hundreds of thousands of civilians. People ate anything they could find, from wallpaper paste to pets. But the people of Leningrad refused to surrender. The Soviet army eventually managed to break the blockade in 1944. The poem starts by describing the conditions of the first months of the siege. That winter the dead could not be buried. The ground was frozen, the gravediggers weak from hunger, the coffin wood used for fuel. So they were covered with something and taken on a child's sled to the cemetery in the sub-zero air. That line about the corpses being hauled to the cemetery on a child's sled, it asks us to consider the plight of the children during the siege. On a CBC radio program, I heard a historian talk about a teacher's journal that had been written during that first winter. He still went to school every day to teach the kids. And in the evening, he wrote in his journal about the kids who had not come to class that day. That number steadily dropped. The children were dying. The teacher didn't make it either. Before his whole class had starved to death, he did. The poem turns next to describe the bodies of the dead as they lay about the cemetery. They lay on the soil, some of them wrapped in dark cloth, bound with rope like a tree's ball of roots when it waits to be planted. Others wound in sheets, their pale gauze tapered shapes, stiff as cocoons that will split down the center when the new life inside is prepared. They lay on the soil. They are not laying on the ground. This is an interesting choice by the author. What's the difference between soil and ground? And why did she choose soil? I think the answer will become clear. The author uses similes to describe the various corpses. On the surface, it's showing that some of the bodies are wrapped in dark cloth and others are wrapped in light. But there's more going on here than that, which we'll get to. First, we'll talk about another set of corpses. But most lay like corpses, their coverings coming undone, naked calves hard as corded wood spilling out from under a cloak. This is interesting. Right after the two previous similes, there's a third, but it's not a simile. Most lay like corpses. But they are corpses. What's happening here? These corpses that lay like corpses tell us a little bit more about the bodies that we saw in the preceding lines. The corpses that were like a tree's root ball, and the ones that were like cocoons. They were not like corpses. These ones are. There's less order with these as well. The coverings are coming undone. They're compared to messy stacks of chopped wood, which was alive, but is no longer. The ending lines of this poem begin with a symbol. A hand reaching out with no sign of peace, wanting to come back, even to the bread made of glue and sawdust, even to the icy winter and the siege. The hand belongs to one of those latter corpses. It reaches out. It wants to live, even under the most horrendous conditions. Again, this is a contrast with the bodies of the first two similes. They do not want to come back. Why? The answer is in the similes. They are compared to a tree's root ball and a cocoon. I used to work for a landscaper and I have made many root balls. This is what you do to bind the soil to the roots of a tree so that you can transport it to a new place. And in that new place it will thrive. And the cocoons. Both of these similes give us images of death. One gets buried and the cocoon is pale and stiff. But the death in both of these instances is something temporary, something that leads into a new life, a life beyond death. And now you see how that word soil is poignant in line 6? Soil connotes fertility and life. This poem describes two kinds of corpses, the ones that anticipate a new life and the ones that do not. The first set lays with the hope of something beyond. The second lay like corpses. They wish to come back even to terrible circumstances because this life is all there is. I think this poem is about two ways to die. One with hope and one without. And this means, of course, that there are two ways to live as well. I didn't look very hard, but I didn't see anybody else that reads this poem as I do. And from what I know about Sharon Olds, she wasn't a Christian, but I can't read it any other way. It looks to me like a picture of Christian hope. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.